Scientists discover coral reef the size of the Empire State Building. World's smallest 3D printed boat is thinner than a human hair. The whitest white paint ever made may slow global warming. And NASA discovers water on sunlit surface of moon.
Welcome to the What the Facts channel. This is Science News Summary, where we will cover the most interesting news about everything science related that happens during the last week. Our topics range from medicine, neurology, and biology to physics, technology, and space. So if you've had enough negativity in the press and you're looking for some uplifting news, then this show is just for you. Let's get started. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia is home to more than 1,500 species of fish, 411 species of coral, along with dozens of other species. But since 1995, it's lost more than half of its corals due to warmer waters and climate change. Recently, one of those pieces of coral has been found, and it's big. Australian scientists have discovered a detached reef more than 500 meters or 1,600 feet high, taller than the Empire State Building, at the northern end of the Great Barrier Reef. The blade-like vertical reef, about 130 kilometers or 80 miles off Cape York, Australia's northeastern tip, was found during a 3D seabed mapping exercise conducted from a ship owned by the Californian nonprofit Schmidt Ocean Institute. This unexpected discovery affirms that we continue to find unknown structures and new species in our ocean, said Wendy Schmidt, the institute's co-founder. It's the first detached reef of that size to be discovered in more than 100 years, making it a thrilling find for the scientists. Detached reefs are standalone structures, so although close in proximity, this new reef is not connected to the Great Barrier Reef. Instead, it's embedded deep in the seafloor. The structure is estimated to be around 20 million years old. The new find is one of 8 detached reefs within a 93-mile span, but the rest were mapped in the 1880s. Isolated seamounts like this are critical habitats for marine life, especially since corals across the world are disappearing. Since they develop in isolation, they can give rise to unique communities of wildlife, and even to the emergence of new species. Scientists will likely study the reef and its inhabitants extensively in the coming years to understand this new reef and its role within the incredible Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area. Paleontologists have found 2 nearly complete skeletons from a new genus and species of gnothosaurid marine reptile that lived during the Middle Triassic in what is now China. Dubbed brevicow, short for Brevicatosaurus jiangxinensis, the ancient creature used its short and flat tail for balance and floated near the bottom of the edges in shallow water, picking off prey with fang-like teeth. This reptile lived during the Triassic period, approximately 240 million years ago, had a small head, fangs, flipper-like limbs, a long neck, and surprisingly, a short and flat tail. Scientists at the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing and Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa studied 2 skeletons discovered in a thin layer of limestone in 2 quarries in southwest China, the most complete skeleton measuring just under 60 centimeters or 2 feet long. The reptile's forelimbs were more developed than its hind limbs and could have played a role in helping the animal to swim, the researchers noted. With its thick and dense bones, including vertebrae and ribs, it was likely stocky and stout in its appearance. What's more, Nothosaurus was not necessarily a speedy swimmer, experts believe, based on evidence. However, its dense bones may have afforded it an advantage: stability. Its thick, high-mass bones could have made it neutrally buoyant in shallow water, and with the help of its flat tail, the predator could float motionless underwater while using little energy. The size of the skeleton's ribs also suggests the reptile had large lungs, increasing the amount of time it could spend underwater, searching for food, another attribute needed to help a slow swimmer survive. Researchers at Leiden University in the Netherlands have created what's probably the world's smallest boat. Measuring just 30 microns long, or 1/3 the thickness of a human hair, the tiny model was 3D printed as part of a project investigating how to make synthetic microswimmers in complex shapes. Microswimmers are microscopic organisms or objects that can move through liquids. Natural examples of microswimmers are bacteria and sperm. Synthetic versions could have a number of practical applications, including the delivery of drugs to specific areas of the human body. The boat itself is known as 3D Benchy, and it's often used as a test run for 3D printers to see how well they can handle all the little intricacies. Since this project is using an unconventional method of 3D printing, it was important to check that it could achieve this level of detail. It's made using what's known as 2-photon polymerization. Essentially, a laser carves complex shapes and patterns into a material designed to react to the light. Along with the 3D Benchy boat, the team made microswimmers in spirals, helices, spiky balls, and even the starship Voyager.
One face of the object is coated in platinum, which reacts with the surrounding medium by producing bubbles, propelling the tiny craft forwards. However, the boat's shape wouldn't be the most efficient shape. It was more to test how well the laser could create detail. The helix and spiral shapes performed much better, with one end coated to propel them in a corkscrew motion. We already have the world's blackest black, a color so dark that looking at it is like looking into a hole in the universe. Now, thanks to a team of scientists, we have the world's whitest white, a creation they believe has the ability to slow the process of global warming. Developed by scientists at Purdue University, the new Whitest white acrylic paint reflects 95.5% of sunlight. The breakthrough represents a notable improvement over the previously most reflective white paints, which bounced back between 80% and 90% of that light. With a common acrylic base, it can be painted or even sprayed on like any other paint. But inside is a mix of calcium carbonate pigment. Calcium carbonate is an extremely abundant material found in shells, limestone, and chalk. When ground down to tiny particles several times smaller than the diameter of a human hair, calcium carbonate can create a paint whiter than any white paints ever produced before. The group's research has shown that their new shade of white paint, which has no name yet, can cool surfaces by as much as 18 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. This means that the paint could be applied to rooftops of buildings around the world to keep them naturally cool. As the sun would reflect most of its heat back off the top of the structures, buildings would no longer need expensive electrical air conditioners to keep their interiors at a moderate temperature. Air conditioning is often considered a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. While painting the surfaces of buildings in this new white paint may not be quite as environmentally effective as installing solar panels, it will be significantly more cost-effective. And here is the last news update for this week. NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, SOFIA, which is a heavily modified 747 jet, has confirmed for the first time water on the sunlit surface of the Moon. This discovery indicates that water may be distributed across the lunar surface, and not limited to cold, shadowed places. SOFIA has detected water molecules in Clavius crater, one of the largest craters visible from Earth, located in the Moon's southern hemisphere. Previous observations of the Moon's surface detected some form of hydrogen, but were unable to distinguish between water and its close chemical relative, hydroxyl. Data from Clavius crater reveal water in concentrations of 100 to 412 parts per million, roughly equivalent to a 12-ounce bottle of water, trapped in a cubic meter of soil spread across the lunar surface. As a comparison, the Sahara Desert has 100 times the amount of water than what SOFIA detected in the lunar soil. Despite the small amounts, the discovery raises new questions about how water is created and how it persists on the harsh, airless lunar surface. Then, how it gets stored and making it possible to accumulate. In the near future, NASA hopes to conduct follow-up observations with SOFIA to gather more data and hopefully answer these questions. In particular, they will be looking for additional sources of water in sunlit locations and during different lunar phases. This data will also inform future missions like NASA's Viper rover and help create the first water source maps for human exploration.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed hearing some positive news. If you did and you want to support this channel, please share this video with your friends or consider hitting the subscribe button. This is Alex, the voice of the What the Fact channel. That's all for today's episode, so stay curious and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.